Today I am joined by composer Dara Taylor. Dara has written extensively for film and television, including the Netflix series Bookmarks and Trial by Media, and she has an upcoming Lionsgate comedy co-composed with Christopher Lennertz, starring Kristen Wiig and Jamie Dornan. Dara is also the composer of the FX series Pride, which is coming up soon. And we went to college together. We talk about how Dara stays focused on her creative work during these tumultuous times, what it's like for her to move through predominantly white male spaces, including her own industry, and also the possibilities of therapy and even stand-up comedy in expressing one's self and finding a place for healing. Hey, Dara!
Hi, Julia.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
It's so good to see you.
I know.
I would love to just kind of hear about how you're doing, first of all, and just how your creative practice has shifted. I'm curious, since you're a film composer, presumably you are way more advanced than me and my colleagues at virtual communication and using computer software and microphones and all that, which has been like this huge learning curve. So I'm just curious, as a film composer, like how your work and your industry has been impacted.
I mean, honestly, for me, again, I spend a lot of time alone in a room. So that part hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I have a lot of equipment here and, different software systems to send things back and forth, different sites that have been useful for, playing things back with directors or listening to mixes from engineers and all of that. So, it's been a bit of a learning curve for everyone, honestly. There was a moment where everyone was just said, okay, hold on a second, what's happening? And that was especially for anything that, had to have a dub, where you mix the music, dialogue, and effects together, which usually happens on a dubbing stage in person with engineers in a place where people touch things. Yeah. So there was definitely like a stop, wait a minute kind of a thing. And then everything slowly started giving dates again. The other thing, and I'm sure we've all been doing this, it's like, well, all right, how long is this going to last? Is this going to be a 3-week thing? Is it going to be a month and a half thing? Let's schedule things for July. It'll be done by July. Oh, wait, no, it's not. So, everyone's just kind of betting on the world, and the world isn't really paying out.
Yeah. So how has the quarantine affected your writing process?
I went through stages of grief, and I think I'm in acceptance right now. Before it was, you got denial, you're angry at everyone. I'm like, why won't you just wear your mask? Why won't you just do what they say? Look at what you've done. Now it's 6 months. All of those things. And it definitely, at one point it just takes a toll on you emotionally for a while to see all the things that are happening in the world. I mean, obviously, May and June were the worst months because that's when the peak of the protests and the rioting and all of that was. And I mean, not that things should go back to normal, but things have at least... People are trying to find... solutions isn't even the right word. People are trying to find next steps now. Like, okay, this is horrible. It's been horrible for a long time. Welcome. And now it's what do we do about it? And doing something is a lot more or a lot less taxing on the psyche than sitting and wallowing.
When you're saying it's been horrible for a long time, what are you referring to?
Oh, I'm talking about systematic racism and all of that stuff.
Okay.
I'm just saying everyone was like, so yeah. I think that all of this has come to a head because of all of the pent-up anxiety and also free time that the pandemic has created. So it's this weird snowballing thing that I think one thing can't really happen without another, or it'll take another route to get there. Yeah, because there have been lots and lots of police shootings, a lot of horrible things, and that one hit because everyone was anxious and sad and glued to the news, and had time to go out and protest and needed a socially acceptable reason to get out the house, and all of those things. Like, there's lots of reasons why things unfolded the way they did this time.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, so I'll just say I did not protest because I did not feel, because of COVID, that it was safe to do so, but
I didn't either.
Yeah, and I felt very, very guilty. Did you face any kind of lashback, or I don't know, how was it hard to kind of make that decision about whether to show up on the streets or not?
Not really. I think everyone is their own person, and I think what this whole thing is trying to show is that there's not one right or wrong way to be anyone or any race, or you can't expect everyone of one sect to do exactly the same things.
So you're saying that the experience of current events was sort of more detrimental to your creative process than the actual isolation of the pandemic?
Yes. Yeah, I think, the isolation was, I'm, until recently, and I get like little taste of like people, I was like, oh, I forgot how good this was. I've kind of been okay with the isolation. I'm sad that I'm not getting on a plane in a week to go to my little nephew's first birthday party in Ohio. Really sad about that. But other than that, the isolation has been all right, especially with my workload. In order for me to be productive and creatively productive, I can't be bogged down emotionally. It's really hard to get through that. I let myself look at the news until 7 a.m. and then after like 5. But there's times where I'm like, don't look at the news. It's a spiral. Just like Facebook or Instagram. Like, I also cannot look at the news. I don't know. I guess at this point I've learned to compartmentalize my life from my work, even though I'm friends with people I work with, like, not that kind of like emotional detachment, but just unless something in my life is like so pressing or so close to me, honestly, that it's affecting my work, I just can't and won't let it bother me. If I have a deadline, there were, I think, 4 days in between projects that I didn't have anything like currently happening. Like, there were things I knew that were coming up, or things that were like on hold for a little bit, and I'm not going to say like I fell into a pit of depression. I didn't. But like, if I lost a sense of purpose, which is something I should probably figure out in therapy at some point. But like, as soon as I don't have any deadlines, I'm like, well, what do I do with my life? And like, the first 2 days are great. And then like, you get on the third day and I'm like, well, now, but I guess all of those things that I push down, rather than compartmentalize, start bubbling back up. Yeah, it's great. I like what I do, and I like to have work, and it feels good because, there are lots of people out there that don't have work, so I appreciate the work. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. But even in college, I would take 26 credits a semester.
That's right.
So this is not new.
Yeah, so we were in choir together at Cornell.
Yeah.
And I'd just love to hear kind of what your experience of Cornell was like as a female composer. of which we were the only two, right? Basically?
Yes. But there were only like 5 composers.
Yes.
As far as undergrads go, so it felt pretty balanced to me. Cornell felt more balanced than the real world.
Okay. Well, there was about 15 all male doctoral students.
Well, I don't count them.
You don't count them? Okay.
No, I'm only looking at the undergrads. Except for Zach Wadsworth, he's wonderful.
He was amazing, as was Eric Nathan. Yeah, I mean, there were some great guys in there, but there were some very mean.
Well, yeah, I
guys.
mean, yeah, and that part, I guess, I don't know, maybe I blocked this stuff out. Because, yeah, they made me feel supremely uncomfortable and kind of bad about my music or wanting to do it, and really kind of self-aware of everything.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even really going to study composition until Zach showed up. And I'm like, okay, you I feel comfortable with. And yeah, if he didn't show up, I don't know if I would have done it.
Can you share what it's like as a woman composer, of color? Like, what challenges are you facing?
I mean, I guess when I first came here, and again, a lot has changed in like the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Like a lot. And, you know, the numbers in the USC Annenberg reports, and they all still say that we're, 2% of the highest 5 or 250 grossing films were scored by women. And then there's like this footnote that said, and then it was like women, minority men, and then it was like this footnote that was like, yeah, and women of color are basically invisible.
That was what the
use those
said?
words. I'm like, what?
Really?
Invisible? Yeah,
Okay.
I'll have to find it. I think I posted it somewhere. I'm like, well, I'll just make up for being invisible by being incredibly, incredibly loud. I remember when I first came, especially going to a lot of composer events, and I would go to some of these events and screenings and stuff with my boyfriend, who is a white man, and we would go and they would talk to him and assume he was a composer, and then they'd ask me where the bathroom was, and that was my experience for a while. And at first I would laugh about it, and I'd ask them, like, why do they keep on asking me where the bathroom was? And then they say, it's because they think you work here. And I'm like, oh, this
Wait,
runs
Tomasz
deep.
explained that to you?
Yes. This runs deep. And then, like, every time, and then I started to pick up on it, like when I'd be in, Macy's or Trader Joe's. Actually, the funny thing is, it happened once. It happened recently in Target.
Mm-hmm.
But it happened after all of the riots, and I could see the women who made the mistake, and like the mortification over what just happened on her face. I'm like, it's okay, because I was like climbing on the scaffolding trying to get something, so like I get it. It's like, it's okay, but I can see how that little mistake and or microaggression, whatever you want to call it, was a different thing 6 months ago to her. And now she's like,
yeah.
Oh crap, I'm doing it. I'm like, yeah, you're doing it. Yeah, so there's that. There's like the not looking like a composer bit. Right. But I don't know, I feel very fortunate to have kind of found my people in a way. Or, find people where that's not a huge thing. And, I'm often the only woman in the room, or the only black person in the room, or both. But that's also a thing that I've been used to my whole life. I think the biggest thing that I can do right now is just be visible. And
is just be visible? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of invisible, USC Annenberg report. Just be visible and hope that helps.
So tell me about your work with Chris. I know he's been a really important figure for you.
Sweetest man in the world, and very supportive. I mean, I started interning for him years and years ago. And then I was studio manager for a few months while they were in between studio managers, and then I started working for him part time and then full time, and then just kind of grown into also just score producing and additional music. But we just co-scored a Lionsgate movie together.
With Kristen Wiig, right?
With Kristen Wiig, yeah. You know, we kind of split the movie.
Okay.
And we all, you know, wrote, use the same thematic material and all of that stuff. You're always in your own head, and you know how you think, you know where your voice leadings usually go. And it's always just, for me, it's just fun to get, nowadays, getting tracks back over Dropbox. And it's like opening up Christmas presents. It's like, ooh, what did they do? So for me, it's fun just to kind of merge sensibilities.
I listened to your soundtrack for Coleman, which
Colwell.
Colwell. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No.
It was so beautiful. It was just
Aww.
like so lyrical, so touching. How do you get inspired? Are you inspired by the story or the characters? Do you bring your own personal life into it?
Yeah, I mean, especially in that one, that movie has like a deep history because it was a movie that I was paired with on the Sundance Composers Lab with that director in that film to just do a scene as an exercise, and then Tom Quinn, the director, asked me to do the rest of it after we had finished it. And we had, you know, what a lot of people don't have is just like a full week to work on, you know, 2 scenes and really like get this the thematic material and also just like the instrumentation and finding out what spoke to both of us and what spoke to the characters and the scene. And yeah, I mean, part of it, because it was you mentioned personal experience. I mean, and often not. Usually it's a pretty far-reaching thing, but in this case, it was about like a woman who lived in a small town, and her husband had died, and then she was, you know, they closed the post office, which was where she worked, and like she just felt very alone. And this was like it was like a year and a half after my dad had died. So it felt it just made me think of my mom. I mean, she has like plenty of friends and church friends around, but like just the fact that she's losing a part of herself and she's afraid of being alone, and that really got me. You know, I still haven't really fully processed losing my dad either. So again, that kind of happened, and then I'm like, well, got deadlines. Just crap that one down in there. And this is a little more stubborn to get in its compartment. But I also talk about it a lot. I think I talk about the fact that I lost my dad like probably more often than I think I do. But it helps for me, it kind of helps to acknowledge it and acknowledge that it's a part of my life and it's a part of what makes me now. Because I think I've become, I don't know if calmer is the right word, but I see the forest through the trees a lot more. Mm-hmm. Like between that day, before that day, and on that day, you know, something breaks, and you pick up the pieces and see what the new you is. And that is one thing that's changed, you know. I care a lot about my job, and I work hard, and I always want to do good work and work that I feel represents me. And but I also know that film music isn't curing anyone's cancer, or film music isn't, you know, he didn't have cancer. But I'm just saying, like, it's not, you know, what we do is fun and great and helps in the greater sense of you know, storytelling and representation through storytelling and all of that stuff. So, I'm not saying it's unimportant, but I'm saying that I've seen people get really worked up over things that don't matter in the grand scheme of the world.
Right.
So that, but yeah, I mean, I did some therapy in New York, once with a woman for a little bit. She wasn't too great for me. And then I switched. I realized I had like problems talking and opening up to men, well, straight men. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to find a straight man therapist. And
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I did, and it helps, I think. I've just learned to be very open and honest with everyone that I talk to and deal with. So if something is bothering me in my life, I won't keep that from Chris either. I think it's easier to just kind of talk about it, acknowledge it, and then keep going. Because for me, the biggest, I don't know if it's the biggest, but like what bugs me the most, or what drives me the craziest, is to sit and stew on something. I was like, oh, well, if I said that, maybe to say that, or what if that happened, or what if that happened, and I get more worked up in the what ifs than I do in the actual act. I think acknowledging things at least helps me release it.
Yeah.
Or whether or not I'm going to pick it up later, I don't know, but it lets me release it for the moment.
Well, and that's so great that you have like a working environment where that is allowed and appreciated.
Yeah.
I was doing my homework, before this interview, and, just Googling my good friend Dara Taylor to see, if there was anything I'd missed. And lo and behold, I found these YouTube videos of you doing stand-up comedy. I'm just curious, how did you get into stand-up? And and why did you not tell me about it?
Yeah, those are two separate questions. How I got into stand-up comedy, meaning the 4 times that I did it, all through the same class. Well, back in New York, my boyfriend and I did we took a few improv classes. It was a Groupon. It was something fun. We met some cool people. So we're like, let's try that out here. And we found another Groupon to what we thought was an improv class. We got there. It was not. It was a stand-up comedy class. But we stuck with it. And it also was a lot of fun. It was this place called the Clown House in downtown LA. The way that Adam Barnhart teaches it, it's really about like finding your point of view as like a human and finding a way to make that funny. Or find the ridiculousness within it, or the things that, and find a way to, I guess, laugh at it and heal through that laughter. In a way, it's cheaper than therapy. Because he started every class with what he called clearing. And it was like, you just get up and you talk for 2 minutes about whatever happened to you that day or that week or whatever. It's just a way, and also so it's not like on your mind while you're there to learn and try things out. It's also just like a way to like, all right, let's unload for a second, and now let's focus on the task at hand.
Okay, so you've once said about hypochondria, which I really identified with.
Yeah.
And you had another great set about race as a spectrum. I feel like we those are two things that like we haven't really talked about. Like, we don't talk about anxiety very much, or race even.
Yeah.
And of course, like, we were really close in college, which was already a long time.
A while ago.
How has your evolution, like, as you've gotten older, how have you sort of felt more comfortable talking about, race or... I mean,
for years I felt supremely uncomfortable talking about race. Like, probably until I was like 25, which is why I've never really talked about it. Therapy helped.
Okay, yeah.
Falling in love and being in a committed relationship and not, worrying about your worthiness so much helped. Um, uh, and honestly, I mean, even then, I still didn't talk about it a whole lot. I talk about it now. I joked about it then, and joking about it was the first step. At first, I always like shied away from like making my sets about that because I'm like, but I don't really talk about it that much in real life. And then I realized, oh, that's the point.
Right.
Let's find the stuff that you feel uncomfortable talking about, and crack it open, get in there, find the joy in it.
Because in some ways, like with music, you don't have to do that. Like
Yeah.
you can do it, you can know that that's what it's about for you, but you don't have to expose yourself in the same way that, oh my God, stand-up is like one of the most vulnerable art forms, I think, in existence.
I mean, maybe I feel much more vulnerable about music, but that's
Sure.
because I'm like, I try, one is my life and the other is my hobby.
So if listeners want to find you, follow you, hear your music, where should they go?
Let's see. They can go to my website, darataylor.com. I have a couple of things on Spotify, working on getting more stuff on Spotify, same name. The cat's back. They can follow me on Instagram, Dara Taylor Music. I don't really post too much to many other things that are followable. My Twitter is a joke, so don't go there. I mean, you're not gonna find a whole lot. Same with my Facebook page, so check out my Instagram.
Dara reminds us that no matter what obstacles you may face in your pursuit of your career or following your dreams, it is so important to have a community around you of people who support you and believe in you for who you are. And it takes work to find the right therapist or to find a composition teacher who is going to encourage you for your voice. And then, of course, to have a community of friends and family and loved ones who will support you along the way. These are the things we all need, regardless of whatever career path we choose to follow. So thanks, Dara, for joining me today, and thanks for listening.